how many of you in here have a bottle just like this? Plastic water bottle? Anybody? A lot of us. They're easy, they're convenient, it's, you know, they're inexpensive, but they cause a lot of waste. And this waste, if you visualize how much, if everybody put their water bottle in a pile in the front of the room, would be a lot of water bottles, a lot of plastics. And those plastics don't always end up in the trash. They don't always end up being recycled. Sometimes they end up in the waterways. And I'm a biology teacher from the area, and to give you some background knowledge, Maryland is one of the 19 states that have adopted the next generation science standards. We have my county, Howard County Public School Systems, have fully implemented those standards this year in our science classes. And we've gone from a biology end of course exam to a Maryland Integrated Science Assessment that is given to students during their third year. And so I've taken this opportunity in the change of science education to incorporate more STEM, to change what I'm doing in my classroom, or more of what my students are doing in the classroom. And so it's really important for me to think of problems like single-use plastics and think of how I can incorporate that into my classroom so I can provide opportunities to do STEM for all of my students and make it really accessible. And as students are doing science and not just memorizing facts, they're learning. And most of us are probably very familiar with the underrepresentation of women and minorities in science and engineering fields. It's a problem, a huge problem. And so we have to think about how we can get more women and minorities involved in STEM. And how do we do that? You know, I'm sure it's just an easy fix, right? Just a total overhaul of the system to allow access and equality, right? Sure. And so what can I do as a biology teacher? So as a biology teacher, I can meet my students where they are and show them the power of STEM. And as a biology teacher, I've been hearing about STEM for the past 15 years that I've been teaching. And I'm like, okay, I teach biology, that's the S. I got that. And you know, biology is the study of life, and we do some cool stuff, so I got at least part of it. And math, the M part, you know, we do a lot of math in science classes, and we work together. We use math to make sense of our data that we're collecting. It's very important. You can't do much in science without really relying on math. And technology, well, we're at a technology conference, so we are very familiar with technology and the importance it is to use it in the classroom. We just need to teach students how and when to use it appropriately. But the E in STEM, engineering, that was my personal stumbling block. I just didn't know what it would look like in a science classroom. I think that had to do with some of my misconceptions with engineering. And I realized engineering is really about problem solving. And problem solving is something that I could do in my classroom. And so I started looking for problems that my students could solve in the classroom. And I wanted to build a STEM classroom where they could be curious and use creative problem solving and be creative and to collaborate with one another. And those types of problems where they can do all that can happen with Mr. Trash Wheel. I'm obsessed, I'm sorry. But if you haven't seen Mr. Trash Wheel, he's right outside. Mr. Trash Wheel also has some friends. There's a Captain Trash Wheel in Canton. Professor Trash Wheel's in Canton. Captain Trash Wheel's in Masonville Cove. But it's such an innovative design that is meant to take trash that flows off the watershed into its belly, and it takes so much of these plastic water bottles out of the waterways and into a dumpster. And I thought that would be such an inspiration for a problem of single-use plastics and the human impact on our ecosystems. So as our students, we went around our campus and collected trash. We found a lot of these. We found a lot of other weird stuff, but I won't get into that. We also started designing our own little mini trash wheels. So we did some brainstorming and concept sketching, and then they spent some time working through the engineering design process of building and testing, and then ultimately showing off their very creative designs. And I tried to make it as real life as possible, and each group had a project manager who met with their team every morning to talk about their goals for the day. They even had to do performance evaluations. And then we had a software engineer who wrote the code to control the motors and sensors. We had a mechanical engineer that chose the single-use plastics that they collected because they built it out of the plastics they collected to bring awareness of it. And then we also had a marketing and design person to bring awareness to the single-use plastics to make it cute so people want to talk to it, and a 60-second PSA. And so I try to bring in all types of kids to bring that interest, to get that hook, so that students were interested and wanted to learn more. And they were. I couldn't get kids out of my room. They wanted to come in during lunch and after school. They wanted to solve that problem. They're like, we're so close. We need to finish this. And it was amazing to see how into this project they ended up being. And as a teacher, I would just go around and listen to the class and just hear them talk to each other. And instead of giving up, they would say things like, oh, well, that didn't work. Let's try this. Or have you tried that? What if we do this? And most of the time when you're doing stuff in class, they just be like, oh, I don't get it. I'm just going to like sit on my phone and text. And none of that happened. It was amazing. And going and experience that with my students by taking that risk and trying something very different and new, I was able to really see that power of STEM myself, and I want to do more. So my takeaway is this. If you can incorporate STEM concepts in content area classes, any content area, even theater, you can show those students that may be a little hesitant about coding or engineering design, and show them that maybe coding is pretty cool and engineering is kind of fun. And maybe they'll be interested in trying it out one day. So if you can expose your students to STEM and give them problems they're interested in, then you can help them change the world. Thank you.
Thank you.